You should see a picture. Yeah, you should see a picture of a beautiful woman and a not so good looking guy. So that's me and Simon. We were just leaving a weekend-long leadership development seminar in South Florida, and I had flown across the country from California to be at this particular one. So in this moment, what you want to know is I'm feeling bold. At the same time, I'm feeling just a little bit nervous because what I was about to do is something I had never, ever done before. And in my head, the conversation's like this. I'm saying to myself, this is crazy. This is insane. I've only known Simon for 3 months. We've only known each other in person for 10 days. This is nuts. This is nuts. Should I do this? Should I do this? I can do this. I can do this. I'm going to do this. And so I'm holding the wheel firmly at 10 and 2, and I'm gripping it so tight. You'd be able to see my knuckles. They were turning white, seriously. And, my heart's just pounding out of my chest. And I've got this fake determined stare, pretending to be vigilant about the road conditions ahead. And I declare out loud, look over at Simon, I go, 6 months. I don't actually want to be in a long distance relationship. So you and I will date cross country for 6 months, and we're going to see each other every other week. And at the end of those 6 months, you are going to you're going to fly. You're going to fly to California. You're going to help me pack up all of my things. Then we're going to drive across the country back to Orlando, at which point I'm moving in. And you know what? That is exactly what happened. So Simon and I dated 6 months across the country. We saw each other every other week. There's some pictures of us together. And in December, she flew to California. We packed up all my stuff and drove across the country, and I moved in. I've been living in Orlando since December of 2019, and that's where I am now. We actually been now married for a little bit over a year. We got married in February of 2021. Now, I didn't know then, but Simon has since told me. You see, in that moment in the car, Simon finally felt loved the way she always wanted to be loved. And this was her dream, to be loved like that. And now her dream had finally come true. I made her dream come true. Now, you didn't come here to hear a love story. I know that. So why am I sharing this with you? Well, as Linda said, my name is Danny Hadas. And for as long as I can remember, all I've ever dreamed about is making other people's dreams come true. Now, for every single one of you on this call tonight, you have a dream about the impact you want to make in the world. You have a dream about the kind of lifestyle you want to have. And those dreams are very real. And if you're here tonight, those dreams might be alive and well. They might be working out as well as you want them to, or maybe they're not working as well as you'd like them to. Maybe you're not making as much money as you want to. If you're a business owner, raise your hand if you're a business owner out there on the call. Yeah, we got a bunch. Maybe you're not growing as fast as you want to. Maybe you're working too many hours and not enjoying your life enough. Maybe your team's not showing up the same passion, conviction, and they don't perform the way you want them to. Maybe they're just not getting things done the way you want. Or maybe it's none of that. You just want to grow even faster than you already are. Or you're part of the Personal Danny fan club. I see a bunch of you out here tonight, the Personal Danny fan club. You just want to see what this talk's all about. Whatever has you be here tonight, I am thrilled. I'm thrilled because we're going to make some magic happen tonight. Now, just so you know, if I'm looking over here, it means I'm looking at your faces. If I'm looking over here, it means I'm looking over the camera. If I'm looking down here, it means I'm looking at the chat. So you know where my eyes are going. So here's what we're going to do tonight, all right? Over the next 30 minutes, actually, before I do that, so those of you who don't know me, here's what you need to know. Personally, I was born and raised in New York. So whether it's tonight or any time after, you can count on me to give it to you straight. And I'll be giving it to you straight throughout the entire talk. And yes, I do live in Florida now. If you weren't already aware, it's every New Yorker's birthright to make the transition to Florida. And I just made my transition a little earlier than most people do. That's the truth. Now, professionally, what's important to keep in mind is that I've spent more than 10 years consulting with some of the biggest brands in the world. Literally, Disney, BMW, Johnson & Johnson, AT&T, AstraZeneca, the list goes on. But the important thing is that all of them partnered with me to work on some of their biggest ambitions. But for the last 2 years, I've been working with team leaders, managers, and business owners, people just like you, to get their dreams back on track. And tonight, why I think we're going to make magic happen is because wherever you're at, we're going to take a step towards getting your dreams back on track. So like I was saying, over the next 30-ish minutes or so, I'm going to share with you 4 game-changing minimalist leadership practices that can literally double your team's performance without doubling your effort. So whether you're just getting started as a leader, or you're looking to get some things back on track, or looking to grow even faster than you already are, these 4 game-changing minimalist leadership practices will absolutely give you what you need to stop banging your head against the wall and start running towards that dream you have of impact, that dream you have of lifestyle. And my promise to you is we're going to cover each minimalist leadership practice with enough detail. So after this, there's nothing else to study. There's nothing else to learn. You can actually be in action with these minimalist leadership practices the moment you live here today. And at the end, Linda's going to open it up for Q&A. And, between now and then, definitely use the chat to engage. I'm going to pull it up right now so I can see it. Jan acknowledges she's part of the Personal Danny fan club. So anyway, that's the plan for tonight. And if it sounds good to you, I want you to write in the chat, sounds good. Show me you know how to use that chat right. Sounds good. Hi, Courtney. Good to see you. All right, cool. And listen, the best way to participate tonight is using speaker view. You got a lot of pretty faces in the crowd. I don't want you getting distracted. Okay. So speaker view is going to be the best way to view tonight's content. All right. So let's get into our minimalist leadership practices. And the first minimalist leadership practice I want to cover with you tonight is a mindset. A mindset. Yep. Technical difficulties. A mindset. So this particular mindset is the take you have between the relationship between your team and your results. This is the mindset, your take on the relationship you have between your team and your results. So for all of you out there who've had teams, how many of you have had the thought ever? You've been on a team, you have a team, my people, my team, my coworkers, my employees, my colleagues, they're getting in my way. Raise your hand if you've ever had that thought, ever during your career. Yeah. It's kind of natural to think that every now and then. Totally. I've definitely thought that myself as well. So it's okay. Look, for many of us, our people, our employees, our teammates, they really can seem like they're getting in the way of our results, causing the problems we experience in our business and sometimes in our everyday lives. We think things like, if only they'd show up with the same passion that I do. If only they finally learned how to do their jobs correctly. If only they listen to how I do things. Well, then my troubles would go away and my results would magically show up. Sound familiar? Look, yep, we got some head nods. Sounds familiar. Of course it does. Well, look, it's this kind of mindset that is causing you trouble. Truth time. Your people are not obstacles to your success. They never were, and they never will be. In fact, they are the conduit to your success. So let me make this concept real for you with a true story that I think illustrates it nicely. Peter owns and operates a premium audio, visual, and electrical company right here in Florida. And early in our work together, we're on the phone, and he says to me, Danny, before I hired people to join my team, I was making revenues twice as much as I make now. And now I've got more overhead with less production. I'm totally stuck. What do I do? The accent's completely authentic, by the way. I answered with this question, and I said, Peter, let me ask you something. If you had the business of your dreams, how would you want your team to feel? How would you want them to feel? He says, well, Danny, if I had the business of my dreams, I would want my people to feel cared for, appreciated. You know what, Danny? I want them to feel loved. Peter, that's super inspiring. Thank you for sharing that. Right now, you don't have the business of your dreams. So what have you done lately to have your team feel cared for, appreciated, or loved? And then there was silence in the line. And with recognition in his voice, Peter says to me, not a damn thing. I surveyed Peter's team, and on a scale of -100 to +100, his team rated the company a -40 when asked if they'd recommend it as a great place to work to their family and friends. His revenues really were less now than when he was working on his own, but growing his team, scaling, was the only path to his dreams coming true. But his team wasn't getting it done, no matter who was on it. And that's because it wasn't about who played on Peter's team. it was about how the team was feeling. And how the team was feeling was discouraged, overwhelmed, and micromanaged. Coincidentally, Peter's biggest complaints about his team before he's seeing these results was that his team was lazy. They didn't know what they were doing, and of course, they never, ever listened to him. Now, I get it. Being a business owner, being a team leader is stressful. And we're constantly being asked to talk about our performance, focus on the performance, the bottom line, the results, profits. That's ultimately what we measure. Profits, the bottom line. The problem with this is we're not often taught how to create those profits, create the results, create the performance. So my question is this: where does performance actually come from? Where does performance come from? Is it your products? Is it your services? Is it your technology? Is it your process? Is it all those things combined? What powers a company's or a team's performance? People. People power a company's performance, and performance determines profit. People power profit. Your people, your employees, your teammates, they power your performance. And their performance powers your profit. They power your profit. If you and I want to go from being good managers to being extraordinary leaders, we've got to always hold this lens right in front of us. People power performance. People power profit. Now, what happens when you don't take on this mindset? Well, that's when you start to experience being stuck. That's when you start seeing stagnation in your business, or sometimes worse, you see declines. That's when you don't know what to do and you can start to feel helpless. You can start to feel powerless. The truth is, the moment you start operating through a lens that isn't people, power, profit, that's the moment your dreams of impact and lifestyle start to slip away. Now, look, for some of you, I bet this is a wake-up call because you're thinking, Danny, I don't ever think about people, power, profit. I don't ever think people, power, performance. Don't worry. I got you covered. The next 3 minimalist leadership practices will take care of that. So just stay with me. People, power, profit. This frame of mind, this will transform your view of your people as being your obstacle to being your conduit to success, your conduit to your dreams. And extraordinary leaders operate this way because they understand it. And this is why people, power, profit is minimalist leadership practice number 1, because maintaining this lens, this view, this mindset is a practice, just like meditation. Now, look, people, power, profit is so powerful that it actually sets us up to talk about the next 3 minimalist leadership practices, because they are all about people. And why is that? Because people, power, profit. So if you want to leave this webinar ready to lead your team to new levels of success, you will need to lead your people. And like I said, the next 3 minimalist leadership practices are going to empower you to keep this mindset alive, which is why we start with people, power, profit, and why that's minimalist leadership practice number 1. So let's move on to minimalist leadership practice number 2, which is a team survey. So all my friends from Accenture on the line and other big corporations, you've all participated in team surveys. Raise your hand if you participated in a team survey before, or an employee engagement survey. Yes. Now, for my own entertainment, give me the face you make when you think about how valuable they were. What's the face? Yep, Rob says it best. Jenny says it great. Yep. Yeah, Linda had a good one. John's laughing. And for those of you who aren't showing your faces, I already know what they look like. Yeah. So look, I know we've tried team surveys before. We've all participated in them. And your previous experience will tell you that they don't really do anything. They're not actionable. And at their worst, they're really just a waste of our time. And if you're one of the few who hasn't done a team survey before, then you or your company has stayed away because you've already heard that this is how they go. But I have some news for you. If you aren't using team surveys, or you aren't using them effectively, then what's happening is you're actually missing critical information about the experience your people are having every day with you, your team, and your company. And their experience shapes their behavior, it shapes their attitudes, and it shapes their performance. You see, the people who work on your team, they got a perception about how things have been going. And sometimes that perception gets in the way of growth for them. And if it's in the way for them, it means it'll be in the way for you. Well, what kinds of perceptions? Perceptions like, this is just how it is and nothing will ever change. I'm not valued. My manager doesn't listen to me. My manager isn't interested in my development. Those kinds of perceptions. I like to call them Dream sinkers. Dream sinkers. Because they will literally stop you in your tracks until they're addressed. But you can't address what you don't know. And when you don't use an effective team survey, it can become impossible to know about these kinds of sabotaging perceptions slowly deteriorating your team or your business. So let me tell you about Bridget Richard, who runs Lamplight Counseling in Ohio. She completed my 3-month leadership momentum program, and there was a lot she couldn't address in her counseling business because she didn't know. And for years, she'd been bogged down by stagnation, she wasn't growing, and lackluster performance from her 22-person team. The first thing she didn't know was the answer to this question. What's holding my team back? What's holding them back? What's going on with them? But she did know she needed to turn things around. So look, if you need to turn things around with your team, then you need to launch that turnaround with a bold declaration to your people that things are going to shift. Because you need something that's going to touch everyone in the organization at once and has the capacity to rally them around a reinvigorated vision for growth and for success. Now, in all my years, there's only one game-changing tool I've seen accomplish this efficiently and effectively without a whole lot of time and effort from you. And that is a team-wide survey. But no, I am not talking about your run-of-the-mill employee engagement surveys. Back in my day, those were 100 questions and took forever to fill out. Robbie is smiling with acknowledgement because he knows. They have their benefits, I think. I still haven't found them exactly yet. And I'm also not talking about a few questions you can answer by choosing a number on a scale of 0 to 10. Those have their benefits too. But what I am talking about is a minimalist survey that's easy to launch, manage, and analyze. I am talking about a minimalist survey with a set of very carefully crafted questions. Why? Because the right questions will provide you with such rich insight into what your people say is working well in the business, what isn't, and what they would do about it. Not what you would do about it, what they would do about it. The right questions will give you an idea of your people's perceptions about leadership, about you, and their overall working environment. Now, when you have a survey like that, I call it not an engagement survey, I call it a situation audit. Because when it's done correctly, the situation audit provides valuable and actionable insight into the current situation on your team or in your business through the eyes of your people, the ones who are responsible for powering your profit, your performance. Now, the cool thing is the information they provide will reveal what's holding them back, which gives you what you need to create an immediate lift in performance. So let's get back to Bridget's story, because Bridget's situation audit revealed that her team didn't feel like they even knew her. This is a group of counselors, mind you. Talk about what's holding you back. A team of 22 people, they don't even know who you are. Now, I'm going to share with you real quotes from her situation audit. I couldn't make these up if I wanted to. I'm not going to insult your intelligence by reading them out loud because I think you all have a strong command of the English language, but here they are. So read them for yourself. If you see my screen, they're pretty big. Real quotes from her situation audit. Now, look, I don't know about you, but reading these makes me wonder what kind of mindset she was showing up with. And I'm sure it was not people, power, profit. Without her situation audit, we'd have never known. Situation audits, they are so powerful, which is why they're minimalist leadership practice number 2. The first thing it does is it draws a line in the sand to indicate things are going to go differently than the way they've ever been going. It's like shouting from the rooftops. We're taking performance to a new level. And this is the first step. Now, the other thing it does is it shakes up any cynicism, any resignation festering within your teams, and it gives them something to be optimistic about. For any Simon Sinek fans, you already understand the importance of optimism in the workplace. Now, the next thing, your situation audit will give you a sense of direction. I'm sure you all know the saying, you can't know where you're going until you know where you've been. Well, it applies to your team and it applies to your business. The situation audit tells you where your team is at today so you can chart the path forward. Now, probably the most important benefit of a situation audit is it tells your team 3 things. First, it tells them that they matter. It tells them they're important, and it tells them that they're valued. So you remember Peter with the premium audiovisual business from the People Power Profit section. When we conducted the situation audit with this team, we discovered they felt discouraged, overwhelmed, and micromanaged. And Peter had no idea. These are not the emotions you want your team to feel. If you want to elevate your company's performance, I think we can all agree on that. Because instead, you probably want your team to feel invested, inspired, maybe even excited. But the question is, what's holding them back from feeling that way? If you do your situation audit correctly, you're going to find out. So how do you launch your very own highly effective, if I may say so myself, highly informative situation audit? Well, there are only 4 things you need. I'm going to cover them quickly in the interest of time. So here's what you need. You need the right questions. I already told you why. This picture is exactly the question I use with all of my clients. You need the right survey tool. I always recommend Google Forms. It's free, it's robust, it's super easy to use. You can literally launch a survey in 5 minutes or less once you get to know the tool. The last thing, well, not second to last thing, is you need the right timeline. You don't want to take forever with this, and I say all you need is 8 days. I launch my situations audit on a Thursday or Friday, and I end the following Thursday or Friday. I just launched one with the client today. They'll end theirs a week from today. You also need the right messaging. This is not a build it and they will come phenomenon. If your people don't know you're trying to get a survey completed, they're not going to take it. They also have to be inspired to participate. So you've got to have the right messaging. And that's covered. So you got to have the right messaging so that people on your team know what's happening and how to participate. So like I said, a situation audit is the first step I take with all of my clients, and it always sets them up for success. And that's because when it's done correctly, a situation audit can literally be the jumping off point for new levels of performance. You'll learn what's holding your team back so that you can address anything in the way of elevating your team's performance. And when each person on your team elevates their individual performance, your total team's performance rises. Situation audits. You got to discover what's holding your team back. And this is minimalist leadership practice number 2. All right, so let's move on to minimalist leadership practice number 3, which is a one-on-one meeting. So for some of you, when I mention a one-on-one meeting, you're thinking, well, I don't have time for those. I got too many people on my team. I tried them, they don't work. How many of you are in that camp, or how many use one-on-one meetings? Yeah, cool. So often, because we find that we don't have time for one-on-one meetings, we turn to things that are more group appropriate, like emails, Microsoft Teams, Slack, or some other messaging tool. How many of you here are guilty of sending team messages on Slack, Microsoft Teams, emails, like that? Announcements? No? No, no one. Oh, we have a couple brave people. Sure, great, thank you. So look, it is easier to use emails and Slack and Microsoft Teams. I totally feel you on that. It's easier. But my question is it effective? Is it effective? You know, one of the things Bridget from Lamplight said to me early on was, Danny, my team doesn't do the things I need them to do, and we're leaving a lot of money on the table. That's the money I need to scale. So I asked her, how are you engaging with the team? And she says to me, well, I send a monthly newsletter out every month, and it gets about a 50% open rate. That's what she told me. This is last year. This is not some business 20 years ago. This is last year. She gets a 50% open rate on her very important newsletters, which she puts her time and energy into. And of the people who opened the email, we had no way of telling whether they even read it. So this is what I told Bridget, and I want you to know the same thing. When you passively communicate with your people about the things you want, you don't create the space for conversation. And without conversation, you don't know if your people understand what you're asking for. You don't even know if they're willing to do what you're asking. Bridget, between now and your next monthly newsletter, you have no insight into how things are going. You don't know how your people are performing towards what you created. So now for all of you, your dreams won't ever come true if you don't know what your people are doing to make them come true. If you don't know what's going on with your people, you don't know what's going on with your business. So when I was growing up, I used to wake up early on the weekends to watch infomercials about the famous Bronco rotisserie oven. And I was dazzled, just dazzled by the promise made by the host who said, just set it and forget it. But here's the secret. For some of you, that's how you're engaging your people. Set it and forget it. You know, you bring someone on board, you tell them what their job is, And then you send them off. Go forth and conquer. And what happens when you set it and forget it with your employees? Well, you get a whole lot of uncertainty. Passive communication, like Bridget's newsletters or emails or messages on Slack, Teams, whatever, those are like set it and forget it. And when you set it and forget it with your people, you get a whole lot of uncertainty. And it's not just passive communication. Some of you are patting on your back right now because you think you're empowering your people by not micromanaging them. Instead, you leave them to do their jobs and you wait for them to check in with you when they have questions. But here's what happens at that point. You split up and down, pacing. Because what happens is you told them you're available, they never check in with you, you don't know what's going on, so all you can do is sit on your hands and assume that everything is well. You don't even remind you what they say about assuming, do you? Autonomy without guidance is another form of set it and forget it. It too will leave you with a whole lot of uncertainty. So for each of you, just take a second and look at your team, take a look at your situation. And where are you setting it and forgetting it with your team, with your people? Another way to look at that is where do you expect your people to get things done? It's just never done right. Where do you not know what's going on? Feel free to put that in the chat. Where are you setting it and forgetting it with your team, with your people? Where do you expect things to happen? It's not happening correctly. But where do you not know what's going on? Where are you setting it and forgetting it? I appreciate the direct message there. Yeah. Cool. Oh, and then it's a group message. Yeah. And sometimes it takes a bit to think about. So here's what I want you to know. You can't afford to set it and forget it with your people. Now, why is that? Because minimalist leadership practice number 1, people, power, profit. If you forget about people, then you've got nothing to power your performance and nothing to power your profit. So if passive communication like email and newsletters and autonomy without guidance doesn't work, what does? Active communication. You may know this as conversation. You know, two people get together, they have a chance to communicate at the same time, a dialogue. So I present to you, for your consideration, the minimalist approach to one-on-one meetings that will transform your team of doers into a team of leaders that you can count on. Now, for my Accenture people here, I've pulled this name from our first 2 weeks of training. I call this meeting a 30-30. And why? Because I do believe in just 30 minutes once every 30 days with each employee. Minimalist leadership for maximum results. Now, you could spend these 30 minutes talking about the weather, sports, whatever you want. I had a lot of 30-30s like that. I would recommend it. Those are the kinds of one-on-ones that don't work and are a waste of your time. So there are 3 things you've got to address in these 30 minutes to make sure your one-on-ones make a difference for you, your employees, and your bottom line. So here's what you want to cover in 30 minutes during your 30-30s. First, what's working and not working about the person's role or their experience with your team or business. That's number 1. Got to cover it every 30 days. Now, next, for all of us natural leaders out there, we love solving our people's problems. It really fulfills us. That is one of your biggest obstacles to being the leader you've always wanted to be. You don't want to solve it for them. Instead, you want to ask them, hey, what do you see to do about what's not working about your role, your experience here on the team or in the business? You find out from them, what do you see to do about what's not working? Now, the last question you want to cover in these 30 minutes is, between now and the next time we meet, 30 days from now, what do you want to accomplish and how can I help? Now, you'll notice what's distinct. You're doing a lot of asking. They're doing a lot of talking, and that's the way it should go. One of my clients told me his big aha the other week was, all my meetings, I'm talking at my people. I'm never actually asking them for information. Your 30-30 will always be soliciting information. 3 topics, 30 minutes, once a month. If you're committed to being a leader, and I know you are because you're here, you can carve out 30 minutes once a day to meet with the people who power your performance, who power your profit. So look, whether you don't meet with your people one-on-one today, or if you meet with them sporadically, or even if you meet with them consistently, if you follow this minimalist leadership approach, it will transform your team of doers into a team of leaders that you can count on. And then you will be a leader of leaders instead of a leader of doers. Now, how might that shake things up for you if you were a leader of leaders instead of a leader of doers? That's 30-30s, the new age 30-30, the minimalist 30-30. So I want to talk about the 4th and final minimalist leadership practice, team meetings. Team meetings. Now, when I say team meetings, do me a favor in the chat. What's the first thing that pops in your head about team meetings? Throw something in the chat about how those have gone for you. Team meetings. What do we say about team meetings? Tony loves them. So glad you do. Autumn says long. Yep. What else? Same every week. Jonathan says swamp ass. We're keeping it real on today's call. Keeping it real. Yes. What else? Predictable. Sure. Totally. So now, if you were to look and see what's not working about your team meetings, you might say they're really long, or they're predictable, or they're boring. They seem like a waste of time. Now, questions for you. If you're leading those team meetings, are you ever getting crickets when you ask people to share? You know, what's not working about your team meetings? Yeah, you do. You share in the chat. You keep on going if you want. But look, the bottom line is I get it. I get it. I've been through some really bad team meetings, and you know the ones I'm talking about. The ones where it's a round robin, everyone's sharing something, and their share is so irrelevant you can't wait to leave, and you'd rather be sleeping than listen to what they're saying. Those team meetings. Or the one where you're being talked out for the entire time, and you could have just read a memo. We've all been to those meetings. But here is the truth. When you don't make time for team meetings, this is what happens. Your team starts to feel isolated. They start to feel like they're on their own. They don't know what's going on in the business. And then they start to feel disconnected from your mission and what part they play in bringing that mission to life. As a result, they start to wonder if they can find something more communal elsewhere. Human beings are pack animals. We need to be part of a herd. You don't want the people powering your performance, powering your profit, daydreaming about what it'd be like to work somewhere else. No, you got to create an environment that fosters collaboration, teamwork, camaraderie. You need the individual leaders that you forge in your 30-30s to operate as a group of leaders. A group of leaders is a team you can count on to have your back. So whether you don't use team meetings today, or you use them sporadically, or if you have them consistently, I'm going to share with you now the minimalist approach to team meetings that require minimal effort and achieve maximum results for your team. Now, the first question I'm always asked is, Danny, how often should I be having team meetings? And the answer is once a month for 1 hour. Minimalist leadership, maximum results, because one team meeting once a month is really all you need to create a sense of collaboration, teamwork, and camaraderie. The truth is that one team meeting once a month is all you need to keep your people connected to how your business is performing and why your business exists. One team meeting once a month is all you need for your people to see why their role even matters. So how do you accomplish all that in one meeting once a month? Well, I'm going to actually tell you how Melissa and Simon do it at their wellness center. And as I do, I'm going to highlight the specific elements you should incorporate in your monthly team meetings. Now, look, here's the deal. As I highlight these meeting elements, I really want you to imagine how energized you'd feel when you leave your next team meeting lit up, knowing that the time you spent just helped your people feel connected to and inspired by you, each other, and what you're all doing together as a team of leaders. The other thing I really want to get your attention on is, yeah, I'm talking about counseling practices and wellness practices and audio and visual businesses, but people are people. So map this onto your situation. Disregard the context of their business and map it onto your situation, because I promise it's the same. I promise it's the same. All right, so first things first, whether it's over Zoom or in person, first thing Melissa and Simon do, and the first thing I want you to do when you start your team meeting is welcome everybody. Hello, welcome. And then you want to review your company or your team's mission and values. You want to review mission and values. Now, the way Melissa and Simon do it is they have every person on their team read aloud a portion of their branding elements that most resonates with them. Now, if you got a bigger team, maybe you take sharing from only a couple of people, but you want to get people involved right away. Now, I love this. I love this because it reconnects everyone to the brand and why they're even doing what they're doing and why they're doing it with you. Y'all compete with other businesses, yes? Let me see some big head shakes. Yes. They could do what they're doing anywhere. So why are they doing it with you? Your vision, mission, and values ought to tell them, ought to remind them. So you want to start each of your meetings by reconnecting to your vision, your mission, or your values. Now, if you don't have those branding elements, you want to start working on those right away. You really do. Now, for those who you think you got this covered, because you got some pretty thing hanging on the wall, but you never ever look at it, it's time to revisit it and make it operational. The truth is, well-constructed, well-crafted mission, vision, and values can actually be used to measure your team's performance, your individual players' performance. You can do that. I do it with all my clients. Critical, critical, critical. So reconnecting to the brand, that's element number one. Now, once you reconnect to the brand, you got to dive into the numbers. Team performance, that's element number two. For Melissa and Simon's Wellness Center, it's appointments booked, service hours sold versus service hours available, and revenue generated. And when a goal is met or exceeded, a reward is shared with the entire team in celebration. So think about this. What would it be like if every member of your team was inspired by the opportunity to elevate their individual performance because they could clearly see and experience the benefit not only to them, but the entire business? What would that be like for you? Well, I know that for anything, they'd have to, to be inspired by that opportunity, they first have to be clear about what they're working towards. That's what your numbers tell them. So, just think about it and reflect in the chat. What numbers do you pay attention to when it comes to performance? What numbers are important to you? Share that in the chat or write it down somewhere, get present to that. So this really, you can map it onto your situation. Just gonna look at the chat real quick and see if you've got anything going in there. Cool. Thanks for the deck. Yeah, thanks. Some of you sent direct messages. Thank you for that. Yeah, perfect. So look, element number two of a monthly team meeting is going to be team performance. Now, after reviewing performance, Melissa and Simon celebrate victories, discuss challenges, and share upcoming goals. Now, they start with those victories and they call team brags. So everyone on the team gets a chance to share about something they're especially proud of, and it can be about them or anyone else on the team. Now, why do that? Why spend time celebrating? Well, because celebration, recognition, and gratitude are three incredibly powerful emotions that are connected to sustained levels of high performance. In fact, it was Dale Carnegie who wrote in his world-famous book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, be hearty with your approbation and lavish with your praise. A simpler way to say this is celebrate, recognize, and express gratitude with your team as often as you authentically can, and give your team the opportunity to do the same. So that's the victories piece, which again, they call team brags. Now, after the brags, everyone's given an opportunity to share about any challenges they want support with, as well as their goals for the upcoming month. Now, this is so important because while one person is sharing a challenge or goal, everybody else on the team starts thinking, how can I help this person? How can I get involved with their goal? How can I help them overcome their challenge? And that's powerful stuff because right there is the foundation for team engagement. And what you get is a meeting where everyone is tuned in and contributing. That's how you say goodbye to crickets. That's how you say goodbye to meetings dominated by one person. So my question to you is, what would be possible if everyone on your team was tuned in and listening for how they could contribute to everyone else's challenges and goals? What would that make available in your business, on your team? What would that be like? Because that's the third element of a minimalist monthly team meeting, sharing victories, challenges, and goals. So the final element of the monthly team meeting that Melissa and Simon use is they wrap up by discussing important updates and relevant happenings around the business. For example, they got their first ever community event coming up this Saturday. So most recently, they were talking about who are they booking for that event? How are they booking for that event? What are the strategies they can use to share about that event? Important updates. Now, listen, it could be anything, but the point is to share about things that would be on the minds of your team. Acknowledge anything that be on the minds of your team. Now, this last year gave us plenty of examples with all that's happened around the world in this country. You don't want to ignore those kinds of things because your people are going to want to hear from you. You're the leader. They want to hear from you. Now, this isn't just when there's national news events like COVID-19. These can be events happening within your company, like someone moving on or other types of work-related events. And also, this can be an opportunity to recognize someone for something happening outside of work too. In fact, it was in 2010. Yeah, 2010, the day before my very first triathlon, when a colleague said to me during a team meeting, he said to celebrate that I was doing this thing. He goes, and he said it with this accent, so I'm going to do an impression because I love doing impressions. He goes, Danny, I want you to swim like a fish, bike like Lance, run like the wind, and say hello to the finish line. He always spoke with that accent when he was speaking with me. Listen, that's from 12 years ago at a team meeting, and I still remember. You can celebrate anything, really. But again, whether you're celebrating or acknowledging important updates, you've got to address what you know will be on your people's minds. And just plainly acknowledge what's going on, because doing so demonstrates your leadership. It also allows your people to have peace of mind. Because if you don't acknowledge what's on their minds, they'll be thinking about it anyway, they'll be distracted. Peace of mind gives way to focus, and focus is critical to performance. And that is the minimalist approach to maximizing your team meetings. So whether you don't have team meetings today, have them inconsistently, or have them regularly, implementing meetings with this minimalist approach, this structure, once a month for just 1 hour, will absolutely transform your individual leaders into a group of leaders that you can count on to have your back, have your back and work on your team's mission, work on your dreams. So these are your 4 minimalist leadership practices. And when you do them consistently and correctly, these minimalist leadership practices will transform your people. They will transform your leadership, and they absolutely will transform your bottom line. They are so effective that my clients have doubled their team's performance and their revenue without doubling their effort. Now look, going back to that Bridget Richards story, when I met Bridget in January of last year, she had a lot of unfulfilled dreams about the lifestyle she wanted to have. She had a lot of unfulfilled dreams about the impact she wanted to make. And she didn't know about any of these minimalist leadership practices. And like I told you, her team didn't know her. They didn't know her. So look, we began with a situation audit. We took on the mindset of people, power, profit. We installed those 30-30s. And even though she'd been running the business for 7 years, we held her first ever monthly team meeting. She never had one before. Now, this is what happened for Bridget. In 2021, she tripled her take-home pay. She moved both of her physical spaces into bigger and nicer locations. She's adding a third. She added 10 new team members, 2 managers. And the best part is in November, she sent me an email. She let me know that her business had gone from $600,000 a year to over $1.2 million a year. And she never had more free time in her life. She literally doubled her revenue and cut her effort in half. She went from set it and forget it to wild success as a minimalist leader. She went from my dreams will never come true to my dreams are happening right now. She has so much free time, she started a side hustle. Now that's her success story. Now let's talk about your future success story and what could get in the way. The most common barrier here all the time is, Danny, I don't know how to get these practices going in my situation, or even better, I don't have the time. So look, here's the deal. When you go back to work after this, whether you don't know how, don't have the time, or even if you just plain old forget, you're going to find yourself in situations when your team needs you to step up your leadership. Now, I'm going to give you 4 clues that let you know that your team needs you to step up your leadership. 1, you know your team needs you to step up your leadership when you find yourself asking someone to do the same thing over and over, and it's never done right. That's just clue number 1. Clue number 2, when you find yourself being asked the same question over and over, even though you've answered 100 times. That's clue number 2. Got 2 more for you. Clue number 3, when you find yourself unsure how to support someone, when they come to you with a challenge you don't know how to solve, or better yet, a challenge you don't want to solve. But my 4th and favorite clue that lets you know you step up your team's your leadership. You can tell when your team needs you to step it up when you find yourself wishing your people will come to you with solutions instead of problems. Now, these things are going to happen whether you don't know how to implement these practices, or don't have the time, or you just plain old forget what we talked about today. In fact, I saw many of you taking notes. I can see. I've got eyes. I wear very thick glasses. You're taking notes. We've all been to conferences, webinars, talks, seminars, and our good notes are good for nothing when we get back to work tomorrow because we're so busy. And I do not want that to happen to you. Let's make your good notes good for something. Now, how do we make that happen? How do you make that happen is you spend 45 minutes with me talking about your situation and these minimalist leadership practices and telling you how to put them in place. That's what we do. That's all it takes. Minimalist leadership, maximum results. So to make that happen, so you can have your good notes be good for something instead of good for nothing, all you've got to do is take your phone out, scan that QR code with your camera app. It'll take you to a very quick survey with your name, your email, if you want, your phone number. That gives me permission to send you a note saying, hey, here's how to schedule time. And during our time, all we're going to do is talk about these minimalist leadership practices, your situation, and how to make them happen for you. So if you are already on your phone, then you just want to go to the URL at the bottom of that page, bit.ly/roadmap with Danny. It'll take you to the same place, all lowercase, and that's how that works. Now we are running out of time, so I do want to leave you with a final story before we open up to Q&A. It's 3 years ago now, 3 years ago. I had a lot of unfulfilled dreams myself. unfulfilled dreams about the impact that I wanted to make and the lifestyle I wanted to have. I wanted to start a business. I wanted to start a family. I didn't have a girlfriend at the time. So I wanted a girlfriend, maybe then, work that into a marriage. I had all these dreams and I had no way of knowing how they're going to come true. And I had this group of friends, one in particular, who were very, very insistent that I do this seminar, this 3-day seminar over Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They're like, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this, standing up to big things. You got to go to this thing. It's going to change your life. It's going to give you access to all your dreams coming true. I was like, thanks, but no thanks. You know who I am? I worked with Disney. I worked with BMW. I worked with AT&T. Very arrogant. I was very arrogant. And they pushed and pushed and pushed. And I resisted, I resisted, I resisted. They persisted, I resisted. They persisted, I resisted. But eventually I caved. I went to this thing. And I don't know what happened during those 3 days, but I can tell you it was life altering for sure. But 3 weeks later, I was introduced to Sima. And I've already told you how that went. And a week after, BMW came knocking and say, hey, we'd like for you to work with us. And my business took off. And now I'm, zooming in from Orlando in my home, where my family is outside being very, very quiet. And we, Simon and I welcomed our first kid back in November, and all of my dreams have come true from doing something that I resisted. So now I think in all of our lives, we come across counsel, advice that sounds really good, but we're kind of like, I'm okay. I'm good. And it's the things that we resist, if we give everything we've got to it, that can make the biggest difference sometimes. So I want you to take the thing that you heard tonight, whether it's setting up a call with me or any of the minimalist leadership practices. Take the thing that gave you the most agita, take the thing you resisted the most, and I want you to give it everything you've got. Because if you do, then maybe, just maybe, your dreams will come true too. And with that, I want to say thank you.